back. I'm Kim Bailey. She's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec. Now, many of you who are long-term listeners will know that we do talk about lots of topics, and we do, although we have differing opinions, we do seem to enjoy the discussions that we have. There are a few topics about which I have less enthusiasm than others, and today's is one of those. Now, I've already been banned before we started recording from putting my fingers down my throat. So if you hear any loud knocking noises, that's just me banging my head on the desk. Because today, Fulyana is going to talk about networking options, and I'm going to pretend that I'm listening.
Actually, we're both going to talk about it because I think Kim needs to fess up. You stop that. It's important.
Yeah, it's important. I just don't like doing it.
I can see why you wouldn't like doing it. A lot of people have that same reaction. I think because they think of networking as a task.
It's
and
the
using,
word. It's
and
the word.
using
No,
the
that's
word.
definitely the word. The word networking these days, I think, for a lot of professionals, tends to conjure up dreadful seminars or conventions or business meetings, breakfasts and dinners and presentations where it was just a room full of people trying to sell themselves to other people who were selling themselves. And really there was no interaction, there was no development, there was no outcome. You didn't come away from one of those activities thinking, oh, that's good, I met that person, that's good, that's a connection that I needed. And in some areas, I know in my local area, it's not called networking, it's called business connections. And I think that that's a more comfortable way of outlining what the process should be and what the outcome should be from those activities. But I still don't enjoy doing them.
I would like to take it a step back and say what it is. It's about meeting other people. If meeting other people, it's a human-to-human connection. What's not to like about that? You mightn't like the human after you meet them. That's fair enough. But it is meeting another human being in whatever capacity. And if you take away the idea of networking and that word, take out the fact that it's about business and I have to have a business purpose and outcome, and just meet the people and let nature take its course. It's inevitable if you go into an industry function, for example, that you have something in common and you will talk just like you would if you meet someone on a train or that. If you allow yourself to just think about meeting another human and building a relationship. Now, when I say building a relationship, that can have so many different levels. One of them, if you bumped into someone on the bus and you offered them a seat or whatever it is, and you had a 2-second conversation before that was a relationship of, oh, that was a nice person on the bus, was, helpful. End of relationship. Mm-hmm. And that relationship can be something that is much more deeper, that you build. You saw someone at a function, then you saw them down the street at the supermarket, then you saw them again at the wedding or whatever it may be, and you continue, if you wanted to, with that relationship on touching base and talking. So if you open yourself up to just meeting and building a relationship as a human to human, then the rest will happen. So it's about communication, it's about mixing with like minds, but also mixing with people with completely different ideas. Within your industry, if you go to industry functions, you're meeting people that are trying to do the same thing. So if you are, a painter, house painter, you going to a building function, then you're meeting other painters who are also looking. But if you're looking for the clients, you've got to go to another group of people so that you can ask people that will, be saying, oh, yeah, so you're a painter, and they like what you were saying and how you do your business, and they might be interested. So it's the people that you want as clients, it's people that you want as colleagues, it's people that you want to share ideas within your industry. How you choose where to go and how to spend your time is obviously up to you, but make sure it's varied and it's not a chore. It's there to meet people and to think differently.
I think the bottom line for me is that we have talked previously about the reasons that you might get work, you might get consulting work or contracting work or project work, whatever else it is, would be because people know, like and trust you. And they're not going to get to that point of knowing you or thinking that they know you, of liking you and of trusting you, and therefore wanting you to be part of their organisation or their team, unless they have an opportunity to interact with you across all sorts of topics rather than just what you can offer them in terms of the services or the products that you have. In line with that, I think that to get over the initial interaction that you need to have, regardless of whether it's an industry function or outside of industry function, is a thing called the audio logo. And it's like a business card that is about no more than 30 seconds long, that just gives people an idea of what you do or why you do it. You practice that, you have one that is appropriate for those occasions so that it becomes the introduction, it becomes the icebreaker for you, it becomes the way that you can get past that point of saying this is what I do, and that if people want to ask you more about what you do, that they will, but that you don't have to give them the speech up front to say, well, this is who I am, this is all of the projects I've worked on, these are all of the skills or the resources that I have, because they're not interested in that in the initial reaction. And it's not the place to be talking that way. And I think that for a long time, networking activities were seen as the place where you just exchanged business information.
Before we recorded this, Kim and I were talking about this very topic, and we talked about the role social media plays. And it is great now that we do have social media and that we can be connected to the sort of people we just talked about. My concern is if we're doing it just as a numbers game, like people are proud to say, I've got so many hundreds of Facebook friends and I've got so many hundreds of LinkedIn. I think it's not a quantity game. It is the connection and why behind it, and what sort of quality interaction you are having with each other, whether it's electronically or face-to-face. The other thing, when people say, well, how do I get to meet people and that? Just be natural wherever you are. Just reach out, listen to other people and get to know them. That's the obvious communication thing. But another way is to take a part in some of the industry things. Do a presentation on something, because then people know what your thoughts are about this particular topic, and then they might connect with you to discuss it further because they are interested. The other thing is it's about writing articles, maybe. Articles that you share now, it's so much easier. You don't have to publish a book, but that is a good idea. But if you're not doing that, but just sharing an idea, sharing an article and your take on it, again, on social media, that can reach people that want to know. And they will read it, even listen to it or see it. If you do a video or a podcast or even just a short audio communication, then yes, but by doing that, you are connecting with people who are interested in what you're interested in.
I think as an extension of that, I would recommend that everybody has a website of their name, so that you are not allowing social media to direct the influence that you have with your name. For example, I would have a website that is my name, and on that website I will put the things that are interesting to me. So you can actually look it up because it is there. Fulyana doesn't have one at the present time, and she can shake her head.
Comfort zone.
She can shake her head as much as she likes. If I have to network, she has to have a website of her name. The value of having a website that is your name is that when people search for you, or they meet you at one of these activities and they think, oh, who was that person? I remember the name. What is the first thing that we do these days is that we look them up, we do the search and see what interactions there are. If you've got a website that you've developed by putting good content on it, it is content that reflects your values, reflects your opinions, reflects your knowledge, reflects your views, reflects your interests, then people get a chance again to start to get to know you, and you're not providing that information under the umbrella of social media, so it doesn't get shaded or jaded or coloured in any way by the social media taint, if I can put it that way, of these other sites. Because the Facebooks, the LinkedIn, the Twitter, they come and go in popularity, they wax and wane. But if you've got a website that is you, that not the business is a separate one that is just you. Reserve the real estate of your name. If your name's already gone, then something that is an extension of your name, that's a whole different topic altogether. But have that as the basis of setting up for yourself who you are so that people can start to get to know you. Certainly have all of the other social media environments attached to that side, but really set your standard by what you put on your website. So when you look at mine, you'll see that it's got a few categories of things that I'm interested in. So there's a link to the stuff around the floral art and flower arranging. There's a link to here, to Inside Exec. There's one to the public speaking activities, which is still a big part of what I do. There's one to book repairs, because for a little while I was still in Sydney, when I first came out of corporate life, I wanted something to do something completely different. So I ran a mobile book binding repair service. And so there's a lot of information there about how people can do it themselves these days. So just...
What about the lolly shop?
No, I don't think there's a link to the lolly shop. The lolly shop is a whole other life altogether. That's very much was a commercial enterprise, and it's not there because it's not one of my interests any longer, and it's not something that I want to be aligned with any longer.
Okay. Yeah.
And so it's not there. And so, again, it gives you the opportunity, although if people were looking at me through Facebook, they would still see a fair bit of influence around the lolly shop, because it was, for 7 years, it was a big part of what I was doing. And so I don't want that association anymore, and particularly if I sell that business, I don't need that to be aligned with that any longer. The new people need to be aligned with that, and they need to create that profile for themselves. And bottom line is that because it's not really a focus or an interest of mine any longer, I don't have it as part of the things that you can see in terms of my name. I would suggest that that's a very good way for you to start thinking about who you are, because it starts to make you put your opinions out there, and they are only opinions, and the internet is full of opinions, but it gives you an opportunity to talk about a broader range of things, not just the stuff you do, but, just your take on an interaction that you might have had on the bus this morning, or the supermarket, or wherever, and what that made you think about. And so it gets a bit philosophical, but it's interesting for people to read, because they get to start to think that they know you, and they might like you, and then they might trust you, and then they'll come back and want to do business with you.
It also gives you the opportunity to talk about other people's work and findings. So you might have listened to a podcast or watched a documentary on something that you had a view about, and you wanted to share it because it is something that is very topical and people show interest, and somebody else may not have had the chance to see it. And you sharing it will allow them to do that. So what that does is connecting you to another person, and they will remember who you are and what you do, and vice versa. And this way, it's back to relationship building.
And it's that 6 degrees of separation. So it might be that someone reads or hears about what you're interested in, or the views that you're expounding, and whilst it doesn't necessarily influence them, they know someone who would be interested in it. We say that we are six interactions away from a common interaction. And so you get people who, again, are, in terms of their influence, sneezers. So their influence travels a long way, far and wide, and they look at something of yours, and whilst it's not something that they would necessarily agree with or do or look at, that they feel important because they've got a bit of information that they can then pass on to others themselves. All of that creates a standing for you, and it is networking, just not the way that we have perceived networking over the past, say, 20 years. And so I can live with that. I can do that kind of networking.
The bottom line is everything happens with people. No matter what it is, you don't create it if nobody's going to buy it. Who's going to buy it? It's a person who you're going to interact with. You can have all the technology in the world, but it depends on people's needs. They decide what's their demand is, and then we produce it, and then we meet their needs that way. So whether it's a social need, whether it's a business need, human to human is the most important in my book.
And I think that my final comment would be that we know that we are talking to a very wide cross-section of the business community, and I would caution those of you who think, well, I'm in a corporate environment, this is where I want to stay. I don't have to worry about my individual standing because I won't ever be selling my own services. Changes that will happen to the way we work and how we work and where we work will be so broad-ranging over the next 10 years that I think it's important for everyone to have a profile that reflects them and that they are in control of. And that's why I think the personal website is such a good idea. And I think it's a good idea for everyone, regardless of what you're doing. Because even if you are in a corporate environment and that's where you want to stay, and good on you for that, you might want to change which corporation you're working with. The first thing that they do these days, you know that, is that they do the search for you as well. And if they see something that is about you, that you've developed, then they're going to have a lot more validity in their interpretation of what you are and who you are than if they've just got to look up a Facebook profile. It's my views. All right. Thank you for being with us today. We talked about networking and what options there are for you. And I think we got a little bit onto the digital side of things. There are still opportunities for you to make business connections outside of the electronic age, and we would encourage you to do those as well, as Fulyana has reiterated on and on during this conversation. It is about people to people, so we do want you to talk to people. For now, I'm Kim Bailey, she's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec.